Welcome to our kitchen. Today we prepare an early recipe of a flatbread that has become popular in Italy since the Middle Ages, known with different names such as crescia, torta defogliata, or pizza sfogliata. We start with the ingredients. We need flour, lard, olive oil, and rosemary. We need the flour with lard, water, and 2 pinches of salt. Then we let the dough rest for at least half an hour. We used 50 grams of lard for 400 grams of flour, adding just enough water to obtain a dough not too hard. Then we divided the dough into 7 or 8 parts and rolled them into thin rounds. We spread them with lard, roll them up tightly and form a coil. We let them rest for another half an hour and roll them again into rounds, not as thin as the first time. In medieval and Renaissance sources, flatbreads like this one are called in many ways, starting from torta defogliata, whose recipe is described in the Liber de Coquina in the 14th century. Between the 16th and the 17th centuries, Costanzo Felici and Vincenzo Tanara list a series of names, including pizza, piada, crescia, and spianata, that they considered to be essentially the same thing. There isn't a specific correspondence between the names and the recipes, which are not so strictly codified as happens today. Now, piada, crescia, and pizza sfogliata are very different flatbreads. The names have survived in traditional and local uses, but the recipes have changed. Crescia still exists today, especially in the Marche and Umbria regions. A famous version is Crescia sfogliata di Urbino, which is made with flour, lard, eggs, and pepper. Its flavor differs from that of the version we are making, but the preparation method is essentially the same. The recipe in the Liber de Coquina is the simplest and only calls for flour, pork fatback, and salt. Small pieces of pork fatback are kneaded into the dough, which is then formed into a flatbread and baked. This recipe is similar to some historical types of pizza, such as those described by Platina in the 15th century. More complex pizza recipes can be either sweet or savory, and include ingredients such as nuts, herbs, vegetables, raisins, or even elderflowers, as in a recipe from Bartolomeo Scappi's opera. Pork fatback, lard, butter, and olive oil are essential ingredients in historical pizza, since most recipes call for a significant amount of fat to achieve the typical flaky texture of crescia or pizza sfogliata. The version we are preparing today is called spianata by Costanzo Felici and calls for dressing the flatbread with olive oil and rosemary. You can use only oil instead of lard in the dough. A sweet version can be made with butter, sugar, and raisins, by following the same process. Felici and the Liber de Coquina don't describe the preparation of the crescia or torta defogliata. We used a method that is described by Bartolomeo Scappi and Cristoforo Messisbugo in the 16th century, which is still used today to make crescia sfogliata. Another typical method consists of preparing several thin circular sheets of dough, spreading them with the chosen fat, overlapping them and baking. To learn about the history of pies and pizza, check out our book, Early Italian Recipes, Cereals, Bread, Pasta and Pies, which contains recipes from the antiquity to the end of the Renaissance. along with an extensive introduction about the cereals and types of preparations, according to primary sources on dietetics, agriculture, and cuisine. On Patreon, you will find several translations of ancient and medieval sources, including the Liber de Coquina, as well as articles on historical food. For more books on food history, see the description below, where you'll also find the links to buy us a beer and purchase our merchandise. We cook the cresce, turning them a few times. Then we dress them with olive oil and rosemary. These cresce were incredible, with plenty of flavor from the combination of lard, olive oil and rosemary. It would also be interesting to try the sweet version, with sugar, butter and raisins, to experience a different way to prepare a flatbread that is still popular today. Another interesting version would also be the one with overlapping sheets of dough, filled with dried elderflowers, as suggested by Scappi. In this case made with butter and sugar, and served with rosewater. If you're interested in ancient foods and flavors, subscribe our channel and consider supporting us on Patreon.